In the mountains of Norway, a terrified Sarah is running away from something. When she can't hear anything, she stops to catch her breath, but a monster appears close to her, so she has to start running again. She's about to reach her cabin, only to accidentally trip and roll down a hill, which leaves her severely wounded. At that moment, the monster catches up to her and kills her. Meanwhile, a group of medical students travel to the mountains to spend the Easter holidays in a cabin in the woods. This includes Sarah's boyfriend Vegard, who thinks Sarah is still on her skiing trip and will arrive the next day. The group is frustrated by the lack of phone signal in this area but still finds many ways to have fun. They spend the day sliding on the snow and having a snowball fight. In the evening, they drink a lot and play games. Martin tells Hannah that he can show her how sedation used to be done in the Middle Ages and proceeds to cover her face with a cushion, causing her to freak out and push him off because she's claustrophobic. When Liv goes to the privy to relieve herself, she's startled by a strange figure moving among the trees. She rushes back inside to tell the others, but everybody assumes it was just an animal. At that moment, the Wanderer appears at their door and asks for coffee, so the group lets him in after some hesitation. The Wanderer uses the chance to share the history behind this place. During World War II, a team of German soldiers invaded this area because it was an important link to stop convoys between the UK and Russia. Under the leadership of Colonel Herzog, the soldiers spent 3 years abusing and torturing the locals. Later, when Germany was about to lose the war, the soldiers stole all the valuables they could find. The locals used the chance to fight back and ambushed the Nazis in the middle of the night, killing most of them. Herzog and the survivors ran away to hide in the mountains with the stolen goods. Since they never returned, the locals assumed they froze to death, but nowadays it's said there's an evil presence up there. When the Wanderer finishes his story, the group laughs and doesn't believe him. Roy mocks him and the Wanderer grabs him by the neck to describe someone ripping off his limbs as a reminded him of how dangerous things can be, then he leaves. In the middle of the night, Vegard is woken up by a noise in the cabin. He sees someone hiding something under the floorboards and thinks it's Sarah, so he follows her while calling her name. He ends up outside, where he finds Sarah bleeding through her mouth and nose. At that moment, Vegard wakes up and realizes it was just a nightmare. Meanwhile, the Wanderer is having dinner in his tent when he hears a noise. After grabbing his gun, he comes out and looks around with his flashlight. He can't see anything but can hear the same strange noise. Suddenly, a monster appears and slashes the Wanderer's throat. The man runs to hide in his tent, but the creature follows him to finish him off. The next morning, Vegard decides to leave on a snowmobile to look for Sarah. Since he has a bad feeling, he tells the others to get help if he isn't back by tomorrow. After a few hours of searching, Vegard stops to take a break and notices a tent nearby. He takes a look inside and is horrified to find the Wanderer's body with all his intestines out. There also are bloody footprints in the snow, so he starts following them, hoping they'll take him to Sarah. Eventually, he has to leave the snowmobile behind to continue on foot and ends up falling into a hole, getting knocked out. At the cabin, Hannah accidentally cuts her finger while cooking and Martin is bothered by the sight of blood, so the others mock him and wonder how he'll become a doctor. Then Erlen checks on their supplies under the floorboards and finds a mysterious box. When he opens it, he finds lots of jewelry and gold coins from World War II. Everyone is excited about the money they can make with this. That night, the group starts drinking again. Erlen leaves the cabin to relieve himself and a gold coin falls out of his pocket on the way. While he's still on the toilet, his girlfriend Chris joins him and they start getting naughty. Meanwhile, the monster picks up the coin outside. After the couple is done, Erlen returns to the cabin and Chris stays to relieve herself. She notices a creepy face spying on her and gets scared as the creature begins growling and walking around the privy. Suddenly, the floor under her collapses and she falls into the hole full of poop. She desperately climbs out while crying in pain because she's hurt her stomach. Chris leaves the privy, walking slowly because of her injury. She tries yelling for help, but the group is listening to loud music and can't hear her. The monster takes the chance to jump on Chris and takes her away. By the time Hannah turns off the music and comes out because she thinks she heard something, Chris is gone. When Hannah tells the others, Martin thinks Chris is probably just pranking them and says they'll go looking for her. Hannah is still scared and notices a gun hanging on the wall, so she gives it to Martin for protection. The three men leave the cabin and look around, but they can't find anything except for a mysterious bag buried in the snow. They bring it back inside to take a closer look and are shocked to notice it's Sarah's. Liv wants to go looking for her and an argument ensues over the potential dangers. Hannah looks out the window and is relieved to finally see Chris, however she freaks out when she realizes it's only her friend's head being held by someone. She screams and runs to lock the door before throwing stuff in front of it to block it. A confused Liv decides to check the window when suddenly the monster's hand breaks the glass to grab her hair and pull. Her screams alert the others, who run to hold her down so she can't be taken. Martin doesn't dare to shoot with Liv so close, so Hannah cuts her hair, freeing her. Afterward, everyone is panicking. The guys move the couch in front of the door while Hannah grabs as many knives as she can find in the kitchen. When they look out the window again, they discover there's more than one monster. It turns out they're a bunch of zombies. Suddenly, the cabin starts shaking and the lights flicker before a zombie breaks a window. When he tries to get inside, Martin shoots him and his friends cover the window with a table. Unfortunately, a zombie manages to punch a hole through the door and reaches inside to try to unlock it, so Hannah cuts his hand. Looking at the fallen hand makes Erlen realize these are zombies, and he reminds everyone to avoid getting bitten. Another zombie reaches through the door and tries getting in too, so the group rushes to block him with the couch. Only a terrified Erlen stays back, making it easy for a zombie to grab him through the window. His friends rush to hold him and keep him inside, but another zombie appears behind Erlen to insert his rotting fingers into the boy's mouth and eyes. After lots of crushing and pulling, the monster manages to tear Erlen's head open. As the brain falls to the floor, the zombie takes the body away. The rest of the group survives until morning and agree to leave in the cars, which are at the base of the mountain. Roy and Martin go outside and start making noise to act as bait, while Liv and Hannah sneak out to go looking for the vehicles. No zombie appears to attack the boys, so they assume the creatures hate sunlight. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐿Gard finally wakes up in the hole, which turns out to be part of a cavern. He finds a weak spot in the snow that he can get through and returns to the surface. After making a torch with a few things from the snowmobile, he gets back into the hole and starts exploring the cavern. There are open graves in the ground, lots of guns, and even a Nazi flag that confirms the Wanderer's story. This means the zombies are the Nazi soldiers from the war. 𝐒𝐿Gard continues to look around and is horrified to find Sarah's head among the helmets. Suddenly a zombie appears behind him, so 𝐒𝐿Gard punches him to bring him down. The zombie quickly hits back and throws 𝐒𝐿Gard out of the cavern. Then he tackles 𝐒𝐿Gard to the ground and tries to stab him with a knife, so 𝐒𝐿Gard quickly disarms him. This only causes the zombie to start punching him before biting 𝐒𝐿Gard's arm. However, since he has so many layers of clothing because of the cold, the zombie only chews fabric. The creature then headbutts 𝐒𝐿Gard and tries to bite his face, only for 𝐒𝐿Gard to bite him first. Then he pushes the monster off and beats him up with his own helmet to bring him down. When 𝐒𝐿Gard falls to the ground, another zombie reaches through the snow under him and 𝐒𝐿Gard has to quickly dodge. The zombie comes out and hits 𝐒𝐿Gard, leaving too close to the edge of the cliff. 𝐒𝐿Gard then breaks a piece of wood on the zombie's head, but the helmet protects him and the zombie responds with a punch. Then 𝐒𝐿Gard finds the other fallen knife and throws it right at the zombie's eye before kicking him against a tree, making a branch stab him to death and bring his intestines out. At that moment, the first zombie wakes up and tackles 𝐒𝐿Gard off the cliff, so 𝐒𝐿Gard grabs the second zombie's intestines to avoid falling into the abyss. As they hang off the edge, the zombie uses the chance to bite 𝐒𝐿Gard's neck. After screaming in pain, 𝐒𝐿Gard begins headbutting the creature until it falls. In the forest, Hannah and Liv are still running, but they have no idea of where they're going. As they discuss their options, a zombie appears behind them and starts chasing them. Hannah hides behind a tree and waits for the right moment to hit the zombie to bring him down, then she stomps on his head to crush it. Sadly, more zombies appear and run after Liv until they manage to knock her out. Minutes later, Liv wakes up and is horrified to find the zombies eating her organs. With her last breath, she activates the grenade in the zombie's belt, killing all the zombies near her and dying in the process. The noise and the smoke are seen by Hannah but also by the rest of the zombies, including their leader Herzog. When the creatures start searching the forest, Hannah hides on top of a tree and startles a bird that starts making noise. She hits a few times to kill it. But it's too late, the noise has given away her location. A zombie begins climbing the tree and Hannah throws the dead bird at him, but it does nothing. Then she grabs a branch and jumps off to land on the zombie below, stabbing him in the face to kill it. The second zombie also jumps off the tree and begins chasing Hannah through the woods until he corners her at the edge of the cliff. As he gets closer, Hannah begins stomping on the ice until it breaks and they both end up falling into the abyss. Minutes later, Hannah wakes up and finds herself buried in the snow. After lots of effort, she manages to come out, only to discover the zombie is alive too. Since he's also buried, Hannah easily kicks his head to kill him. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐿Gard manages to get back to his snowmobile and stitches his wound using a fishing hook. Then he takes a machine gun from the Nazi stash and takes off. A zombie tries following him, but he's brought down by a branch. In the cabin, Martin is pushing the zombies off the window while Roy finishes a Molotov bomb. He tries tossing it at the enemy, but he fails and hits the wall instead. As the wood catches on fire, Martin tries calling the emergency line, but they hang up because they don't believe his crazy story. They run out of the cabin and safely make it to the neighboring shack, where they find a bunch of tools. Herzog sees the fire in the distance and sends out his zombie army. Roy and Marin come out of the shack ready to fight and begin killing zombie after zombie, letting out all their grief and fury. No matter how many they kill though, more creatures keep coming and they aren't sure if they can win this battle. At that moment, 𝐒𝐿Gard arrives and opens fire with the machine gun, bringing down all the zombies in just seconds. There's one left standing and 𝐒𝐿Gard runs over him with the snowmobile. One more creature comes out of the woods and tries to punch him, so 𝐒𝐿Gard quickly headbutts him and throws him on the ground before putting the snowmobile on top of him to kill him. A third zombie also tries catching him by surprise and 𝐒𝐿Gard easily punches him before ending him with the snowmobile's engine. The three friends think they've won the battle, but suddenly more zombies appear behind 𝐒𝐿Gard and stab him at the same time. Then they grab his body and begin pulling until they tear off all his arms, legs, and head. Martin and Roy immediately jump back into action to get revenge for their friend. Roy decapitates a creature and sends the head flying against the trees while Martin attacks anything that gets too close. He's so blinded by his anger that when someone touches his shoulder he attacks them as well, not realizing it's Hannah until it's too late. As a bleeding Hannah falls on her knees, Martin rushes to her side and watches her die. At that moment Herzog shows up with 6 more zombie soldiers. Martin immediately opens fire and kills most of the enemies, but he runs out of bullets. The last zombie tackles him to the ground and bites his arm before Roy smashes the creature's head with a hammer. A panicking Martin looks at his wound and refuses to become a Nazi, so he decides on amputation. After using the chainsaw to do the job, Martin seals the stump by burning it. Unfortunately, this is all for nothing because a zombie emerges from the snow and bites his groin. Martin kicks him off and stomps on his head to kill him, but he refuses to choose amputation for his member. Suddenly Herzog lets out a loud roar and an army of zombies begins emerging from the snow. Roy and Martin start running away as the zombies chase after them. Roy accidentally gets stuck in some branches and the enemy catches up to him, hitting him in the head and slashing his stomach. As Roy steps away, he discovers his intestines are stuck in a tree and curses before falling dead. Herzog comes closer to take a watch from Roy's body, which makes Martin realize he wants the old treasure. After pushing 2 zombies off him, Martin runs back to the cabin, which is completely burned down. He searches the ashes and finds the box right before Herzog appears with his army. Martin gives them the box and walks away without being attacked again. By the time night falls, Martin is exhausted, but he finally makes it to the base of the mountain and finds his car. He searches for the keys in his pocket and notices a coin falling out. Herzog then appears at the window and breaks the glass to attack. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in the next video.